What's up guys, Patricia from tarantulaheaven.com, and today I wanted to talk about something that came up in the comments of one of my other YouTube videos where I talked about how strong tarantulas are, kind of trying to see if we could find a measure of their strength. And I got a really cool suggestion from James King on YouTube, wondering about tarantula size and penetration force. So after learning about how strong tarantulas were and how they actually have really surprising strength for their bodies, I wanted to kind of look and see if there was anything about how strong tarantula's jaws are, or how much force they can penetrate things with. So thank you, James King, for that suggestion, and I kind of hope that this gives you some, I guess, food for thought. So one thing to think about is that it does depend on things like gender, age, and the type of tarantula that it is. So for example, some tarantulas definitely get bigger than others, and females also tend to be bigger than males, so they will usually be stronger and bigger, so they'll have probably a stronger jaw. And it definitely differs from species too. For example, rose hares or grammostolas, they do have larger fangs in relation to their body than some. And for example, a bird-eating tarantula, they can have tarantula fangs that are 1 inch long, or close to 1 inch. So that's definitely notable. But it depends on how you want to measure it, whether it's in relation to the rest of its body size, or just comparing the length of the fangs to other species. So it depends on how you want to measure that. So I did find some stuff on the fang size, but as far as penetration force, I didn't find a lot of scientific information. A lot of the stuff that I did find was actually from other tarantula owners, which kind of makes sense because there's not a lot of scientific research being done on these awesome creatures. A lot of it is actually coming from other tarantula owners and the observations that they're making about them. So something that I did find out by going through a really cool arachnoboards thread was that some people have found that their tarantulas have done things like eating through, not eating, but kind of chewing through their wire mesh. Another tarantula owner definitely saw their tarantula kind of penetrate through a kind of thick deli cup, which is kind of it can be a pretty thick plastic. That was actually a tea sturmy doing that. So I mean, so tarantula owners have seen their spiders doing all sorts of weird stuff. There's actually a really interesting video on YouTube, which I'm going to link to below, by Salmon Planet, and it's his king baboon tarantula puncturing a suitor kit, or a piece of his suitor kit. So that's a really cool video to watch if you want to see the puncture wounds that a tarantula can create, and as far as the force that might be needed to do that kind of thing. Because the things are the piece that he gave was pretty thick, so that's definitely worth watching. So while I didn't find a lot of scientific information about the penetration force of tarantula fangs and jaws, I definitely found some really cool information about what tarantula's fangs are made of. And this is fairly new research because before we didn't really have the technology to kind of see what materials fangs were made out of, but now we do. And I found out that tarantula fangs are covered in this material named chitin. I think that's how you say it, but basically it's the bug equivalent to bone. And tarantula fangs actually are they're made out of metal. For example, copper, magnesium, iron, and ink. And something really cool that I found out was that older tarantulas actually have stronger and harder fangs because these metals kind of tend to accumulate with every molt, so the fangs get harder. So an older tarantula is gonna have way stronger fangs than a younger one, obviously. So I thought that was really cool. And the really cool thing about this is that the tips of the fangs are actually basically all metal. There's no chitin substance or whatever that bug bone stuff is. There's none of that in the fangs. So it's just the tips are all metal. So that definitely gives them more puncturing power, I guess. In talking about the metals, I'm going to read what I read in a study from Stanford University from their National Accelerator Laboratory. So tarantulas don't have flashy metal fangs, but they do rely on metal deposits to make their fangs extra strong and fracture resistant. A tiny strip of tinfoil is an example of an organized cluster of many metal atoms. In contrast, the metals in spiders, fangs, and other critter appendages are single atoms held in place by nonmetals. This is part of the reason that no one discovered these deposits until about 30 years ago. It's difficult to detect a single atom unless you are specifically looking for it. Moreover, the metals, mainly iron, copper, magnesium, and zinc, are present only in very small parts of the animal. This may include the very tips of scorpion or crab claws, the tiny fangs of spiders, or the jagged teeth on the mandibles of ants. The structures are small but undergo proportionally large stresses as they come in contact with the environment. The metals accumulate after molting as the animals grow into adulthood. Researchers monitored the percentages of metal deposits at different times during development and observed the channels through which these metals migrate into appendages. They found that different metals settle in different areas. Zinc is found in the tips of spider fangs, while manganese is found in the trunk. Often, metal atoms in the newly hardened structures are also paired with specific nonmetals, zinc with chlorine, and manganese with calcium. So that's what I could find. Unfortunately, there's really not a lot of research about this. So if you know anything about tarantula penetration force, definitely leave a comment below. Or if you've observed your spider doing some really crazy stuff with their fangs and puncturing through like some ridiculously strong materials, please let me know, because I'd really like to learn more about this. It seems like other people do as well, but there just doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence or testing done about this. And I in no way condone that you make your tarantulas start biting really hard stuff just to find out. So don't do that. But anyway, guys, if you're interested in more content like this or other tarantula facts or subjects or fun things, please subscribe, and you can also sign up for my weekly tarantula newsletter where I give free tips and kind of like fun goodies and stories about tarantulas as well as facts. You can definitely sign up for my newsletter, which I'm going to leave the link to below. And if you really enjoy learning about tarantulas or are thinking about getting one, or just want to learn more about tarantula care, you can definitely check out my tarantula guide. It's a 200+ page PDF, so you can definitely check that out, also at the link below. That is all I have for today. Thank you so much for stopping by, and check back here every week. I do upload a video every week for Tarantula Tuesday. And if there's anything else you'd like to see, please leave me a comment below. I definitely read them and I take feedback into account. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.